All right. Molly, welcome to the show. Randy and I are looking forward to talking with you. Thanks for making time to talk to us today. I want to tell everybody a little bit about you first, Molly, because you got an interesting background, and we're going to have a great talk about social media and being an entrepreneur. And congratulations on being a new mom.
Thanks.
So Molly, is an entrepreneur and social media marketing futurist. While working at Shark Tanks with Barbara Corcoran, Molly was inspired to start her own direct-to-consumer business, leveraging the power of social media to sell products online. She founded Just Nips Fake Nipples and built it into one of the fastest-growing breast cancer accessories on the market. Her unique experience at the intersection of entrepreneurship and social media marketing led Molly to write her first book, The Instagram Iceberg. Well, I'm really excited, and I know I can speak for Randy too, to talk to you because Randy had sent me a text, hey, let's try to find a local author to interview this week. And then one of my closest friends, Frank, who's your cousin, brought your name up. So we appreciate how the universe got us all together today. Your book is called The Instagram Iceberg.
Yes.
And you're a social media guru. And so right now, I think a lot of people are trying to figure out, A, how do I best use social media to market myself, especially during COVID, in a tactful manner?
Sure.
And B, how do I use Instagram? So This conversation is going to go a lot of different places, but let's just start out with talking about what a social media futurist is.
Sure. So I pride myself on my ability to, see trends and forecast, what the future of social media is. Obviously, looking backwards to predict forwards is, probably the dictionary definition, but that is by trade what I've been doing for the last 8 or 9 years. And, obviously, with everybody working from home right now, especially, entrepreneurs, the inclination is to up their marketing spend on social media, specifically Instagram and Facebook. And that is, sort of why I wrote the book. Obviously, I wrote the book. I spent over a year researching. I did not know COVID was going to, impact us the way that it has. But, my advice is still the same. And, entrepreneurs and founders and really anybody who wants to beef up their social media presence, especially on Instagram, my advice is to hit pause and, look at what, has worked historically in the past, focus there, double down there instead of jumping the gun, going straight to pouring money. Oh, I'm so sorry. Into social media, because especially at times like right now, everybody's racing to put money in social media. So it's not going to be as effective. And that's like my mission. Everybody needs to know that, instead of just wasting money, you're going to be frustrated with results. Hit pause. Social media can always be a big part of an entrepreneur's journey, as it should be. It's a great way to catalog, and show people what you're doing. But I do not believe that it is the way to get the word out about you and your business.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, Jon. So the title of your book, The Instagram Iceberg.
Yes.
I assume the title isn't necessarily limited to only Instagram, but follows pretty much a social media platform.
It does. I say in the book, actually, I'm like, listen, the Instagram Iceberg is a catchier title than the Instagram and Facebook and Twitter iceberg. So I address that point. But, it's funny because I don't know if you're familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk. He's a serial entrepreneur and marketer. Gary V.
Oh.
He, said in 2017, he spoke at a conference and he was like, listen, my biggest regret is not pouring money into Google ads when they were dirt cheap. And his point is, if you don't get it when it's cheap, if you miss the window, don't do it when it's expensive, because it's not going to have the same impact. You have to look beyond that. So obviously, people look to him as, the gold standard of people who really, I don't want to say game the system, but it looks like he is, right? He's really brilliant, but it looks like, how does this guy, what does he know, what I don't? He just sees things first. But he recognizes that, today he would not tell you to put money into Google ads. because everyone puts money into Google ads. So, it's too expensive at this point. It's over. Yes, there are benefits of using Google ads, but I mean, is your sole strategy that is not advised.
So talk to us a little bit about just how to use social. Let's focus on using social media for a moment, because I think a lot of people are trying to figure out right now how to use it tactfully with your message. I think, COVID could be looked at as an iceberg, right?
Sure.
And so how are we, let's just talk basics first, right? What's the fundamental way we should be using each platform from your perspective?
So let's see. I love using Twitter and Facebook for links. If you have an audience of just your close family and friends, if you start a Facebook account and haven't looked at it in 10 years and it's all people from high school who tried to connect when you didn't go to the reunion, whatever it may be, the benefits of Facebook and Twitter are being able to link to something else. Instagram, you can't really do that as effectively, so I don't advise trying. Instagram, on the other hand, is better for showcasing, more of a visual catalog of what you have to offer, whether it's a product, whether it's yourself, whether it is, and I don't mean yourself in like a gross way. I mean, whatever, if you're a speaker, if you are a family person and that's what you want to talk about, that's great. In the era of personal branding, of course, having something more visual that people can point to when they first meet you at a networking event, if we ever go back to networking events, that is a bar, a restaurant, if that ever happens. Using this time to, prepare in that way, I think is awesome. But again, so many people get frustrated and confused and fed up with each individual platform, but it's important to remember that they all have pros and cons. They all have strengths and weaknesses. And, again, the easiest example is when it comes to linking things. You can't effectively link your website to your Instagram profile. You can in one small spot, but it doesn't blast out to everybody. It's just in your bio, But on Twitter, you can send a link every single minute of the day. So just, understanding the strengths and weaknesses of each platform and using them as a honest and authentic representation of who you are, what you're trying to do, is my best advice.
Yeah.
And that's why I think, I love the title, The Instagram Iceberg, because, the iceberg, portends almost like an ominous, potential looming threat on the horizon. But at the same time, the invisible part of the iceberg is generally 80% of the issue that you might reveal your inner strength, that you might be able to go out and fundamentally, achieve, jump that hurdle, get out there and do something that you thought you couldn't do. And I think, the social media platform, allows you to generate that sort of multiplier effect if you do it right.
I totally agree with that. Another thing that I like to point out, because, I've been, aside from just having a baby, I've been the busiest, career-wise I've ever been, because people now are coming to me all the time, frustrated and anxious, and they will cite the same, Instagram and Facebook and Twitter celebrities saying, how do I get to be like them? And I'm like, listen, it's 2020. These people started well before 2014. Well, and that was 7 years ago. That's this long time ago. People were starting these accounts 2012, 2013. They've been at it for so long. This was not an overnight success. And in addition to that, aside from just, the amount of time these people have put into their brands and their accounts, the landscape has completely changed. So it's important to remember that, all of the technological advancements to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all of the, social media platforms that we use have evolved over time in the company's best interest, not in our best interest. Mm-hmm. So they essentially all are, ad revenue generating machines for these bigger companies. And when they were, baby products, and it was like, they were young and they were exciting, advertising wasn't a part of the process. So people could go viral more easily. Now, a lot of people go viral because they've paid, or they, there are a lot of other reasons for what looks viral.
Yeah.
So,
Molly, but let's talk about with it being 2020, and I hear you. I mean, it takes a long time. It takes 3 years or 10 years to be a success. But, and I'm a big believer, and I liked what you said earlier about doubling down. I'm a big believer that, especially right now, doubling down on your content and doubling down on your brand is huge.
Yes.
Because you need to be current and show that you are innovative and be a trusted advisor.
Yeah.
So, to those that are been playing around with all the social platforms, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok now for my generation. I have not done one yet, but my question is, how do you build a brand continuity wise? To be predictable, to be a staple.
So to me, all of that happens offline. Before you build your brand online, you need to know what you're about, what you represent, what your values are, and stem from there instead of going the other way, which I see people try all the time. They'll say, take, for example, a marble countertop. If you're selling something or you want to position yourself and that somebody else does really well and every single picture they have is in front of a marble countertop, then you try to go in front of the marble countertop and you're like, why isn't it working? It worked for them. Well, because it's not true to you. Maybe you are more of a granite person, or, you're outdoorsy or whatever it is. You need to figure that out before you try to attack the online space. I firmly believe that you just need to know who you are, what your brand, your company, your product is before you try to put it online. And that makes it a lot easier too. So especially now, if you take 2 days and just go through every single thing, what do I want to look like? Does my website need, to be updated? Now is a great time. But when it comes to picking a font, if you're going to go with something that's like very structured and formal versus something silly, well, are you a silly brand or are you a formal brand? All those decisions, from anything aesthetic to tone of voice, anything like that happens offline, and then makes it very easy to look professional, cohesive, streamlined when you do get to the point of posting online.
Yeah.
So Molly, along those same lines, for those that have been at it for quite some time, that now want to leverage the platform of whatever it might be on social media, there's a lot of talk out there about influencers and ambassadors.
Sure.
Right? So, the example would be like a dentist to mouthwash or a fitness expert to Lululemon. These are ambassadors that understand your product. So I see too often, I didn't know what this term was, an influencer or ambassador. I, went on a vacation with my wife and, I talked to some people and like, what are these people snapping photos in the corner? What are they doing? They're called influencers. Mm-hmm. But as I've begun to learn, the influencer is really short term, whereas the ambassador is someone who is brand loyal, they're knowledgeable. So speak to us a little about that. Someone that wants to leverage that and connecting with the right people.
So again, you look at, there are mega influencers out there. They have millions of followers, hundreds of thousands. That's a lot of people. And a big mistake, starting out, or, if you have a business and you're feeling like you really want to get you or your product in front of a lot of people, in our brains, we're like, wow, it really would make sense to get it out to the most, amount of people at a time. So I want to hire or enlist this person with 1 million followers to push my product. You pay them. They post about it. You think, wow, this is just, I just got out in front of X amount of people. This is so exciting. Sales will come rolling in, but then they don't. And you're like, what? I just spent so much money, because, the more followers they have, the more they can charge. And, it's perceived to be a really big deal, because they can look at you and say, this post where I talk about you or your product will be seen by 1 million people. And you think that's a really good deal. That's really exciting. When it doesn't convert, it's very obvious why it didn't convert. Unless that person if their brand is not in line with your brand, it doesn't matter how many people they can show it to. It's irrelevant. It's pointless. And it's hard, because those are a lot of very expensive mistakes people tend to make. So, you know, the ambassador model I love because, you know, maybe it's, you know, a girl who's in the ballet, for example. She's trying to, you know, be in the ballet and she has 10,000, which in influencer world is not very many followers, but her 10,000 followers care deeply about what she puts in her body. From, you know, does she like coffee or does she like tea? If she every single day is like, this is my coffee, and you come out with coffee that she happens to like, she's going to talk about your coffee a lot. And it's not going to be, you know, she's going to talk about it every single day. She has her coffee every single day. That type of value is so much better. Her 10,000 followers who care what she does and it's on brand for her everyday routine is far more valuable than somebody with 1 million followers casually mentioning your brand name one time.
Yeah. But you know, you take that same line of reasoning and you know, superimpose that with, let's say, a Kardashian whose brand is whatever is going to pay. The minute they go out, they make a brand, and I believe it converts. You would know better than I, but it's pretty impactful. The
Kardashian model is super interesting, and I would write many books on them. I am fascinated by their empire and their business model. I think it's really short-sighted to just write them off as, you know, whatever you want to call them. Everyone has something to say, but they're very good at what they do. They pioneered this movement, which I think is incredible. And I could go on and on about that for hours. But what's really interesting, yeah, seriously, what I find the most interesting about the Kardashians is how they promote, what they choose to promote. And they do some sneaky stuff, but people don't care. People love them so much. They're not the model. They are the gold standard, but we can't really replicate that. I wouldn't try to. But
what do you mean sneaky stuff? What does that mean?
Pardon?
What does that mean, sneaky stuff?
So if you look on the Kardashians feed, you know, about once a month, one of them, right? They all, if you're a really devout Kardashian, you know, fan, whatever you want to call it, that I am, you will notice that a lot of their promotions, you know, one sister will promote one thing, then the next month the other sister will promote it, and then the next month the mom will promote it, and then the next, you know, it's insular, and they don't just have promotions. Oftentimes they are involved in the products, you know, that they are selling at this point. They're investors, you know, they have skin in the game. So knowing that it's a bigger network than it appears. Another iceberg, Kardashian iceberg.
Yeah.
But
you've done an amazing job. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they arguably both? Are they arguably an influencer and an ambassador, since they sort of take a couple of hits and move on to the next product?
I would say they're both, but what's interesting is I really feel they're an outlier. I just do. Yeah. I just do. It's
so let's talk
far beyond, you know.
So let's bring it down from I agree. I think the Kardashians do a great job.
Yeah.
But now let's bring it down to kind of like a normal person,
sure.
Right?
Normal person.
And I love where Randy's going, because I think, you know, ambassadors versus influencers, there's a major difference. And so to me, it's kind of like you can have 10 followers and that are 10 ambassadors, which to me is better than having 100,000 followers and no ambassadors. And to me, an ambassador is somebody who's referring you business, doing business with you, and sees you as an advisor.
Yes.
And so to me, I just want to talk about, and I'd like to know your perspective on building quality, right? So how does somebody build with quality? And I think it goes back to the drawing board, like you were talking about, you know, back into, you know, before you go online, go offline. And so talk about just that element, and then morph it into what an editorial calendar looks like for consistency.
Okay. So, ambassadors to me, and also just, you know, for anybody listening or anyone's reference, oftentimes ambassadors are also referred to as micro influencers. So it means the same thing, you know, smaller community, but, you know, you have a very unique perspective. And I think that's the key, right? If you're someone who, you know, loves everything and doesn't really care, you're not discerning, you're not going to convert for yourself, or you're not going to convert for other people's brands. And then, if that's the end game, if that's how you want to make some money,
Right.
you likely are not going to, unless you are hyper specific on, what you like, what you don't like. That, and that I feel really does bleed into the editorial calendar, because, I see it work a couple different ways that I am very impressed by. Obviously there's the easy way where you can do, Monday I post about work, Tuesday I post about family, Wednesday, whatever it is, but you have to do what works for you. If Monday you post about work, but your followers know you have Mondays off and you don't start work till Tuesday you post about work instead of Monday, even though it seems like everyone else is working on Monday. Whatever you do, the same. I feel like I'm repeating myself because it's like the same advice.
No, it's not the same advice. But I think people need to hear it in different ways.
Yeah.
I think the key that you're talking about is you create an editorial calendar. It needs to fit into your world, but there needs to be consistency along the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you want your, followers or fans, some people don't like the word followers, and I get it, it's kind of creepy, but your fans, your audience, whatever you want to, however you're comfortable talking about, these people that that are invested in what you do every single day or every other day, whatever it is, you have to be honest and you have to be consistent.
Yeah.
So we got fans, you got followers, you got cheerleaders, whatever the term is. Speak to us about, I'm 49 years old.
Mm-hmm.
This is all new to me, but I've learned a lot during the COVID crisis. Mm-hmm. What about, old versus young, millennial versus Generation Xer, or those might be in their 70s? How do you allow, let's say, the older generation to start using this, where the younger generation it's kind of like taking a layup shot?
Yeah.
So that's a really good question, and I get that one all the time. My biggest questions that you should ask yourself are, what do you want to use it for? Is it, for your business to promote? What a lot of people don't realize is because the younger generations, they grew up on the internet, so they've had more of a fan base, right? Like, these are their friends from high school. Like, my Facebook friends, I went to high school with them. I got a Facebook the same day they got a Facebook, which was the same exact day Facebook allowed high schoolers to have an account, because it used to be just for college. So, your accounts, they're the people in your real life. Granted, they're kind of not, right? Because we all went our separate ways. It's been, 15 years. But, these people are in your actual life. And I think having those quality relationships on and offline is how you ultimately get to appear, that you are, being yourself, and all of those other things, that your presence online is the real deal. It's authentic and it's worth following. So sure, if your, wife or best friend comments on every single thing that you do, like, great job, like, so proud of you, it may feel weird at first to you, because you're like, oh my God, people are going to notice, but people are going to notice that you have fans. Even if they have the same last name, even if they, it's truly, it's starting small. It's starting with your actual core group, instead of trying to inflate it online to appear like you have, this network, when, if it's.
I think that's an important point, is to just grow it organically.
Yeah.
Organically. I have a question for you. So I want to switch gears a little bit, because I think we can put I'd like to know how you put some of this into action as being, a social influencer, futurist, etc. So you worked with Barbara on Shark Tank.
Yes.
And I know you shared with me, you worked with some of the brands to build them a presence. And so, so some of the people who are listening now, later, right, as we repurpose all this, what did you do? Give us a real life example of how you took something that wasn't getting activity, and then you kind of went offline, figured it out, brought it online, and built the brand and the credibility and everything else.
So, really good example. And okay, I could talk about Shark Tank, but it was, you may not know the products, because they're, I worked there a long time ago, so they're kind of old now, they're dated. But there was a Christmas tree product. It was like a fake tree, but it was LED lights. It was super fancy, super high tech, super cool. But obviously that's a very seasonal business. And if for whatever reason, especially like in a time like COVID, right, where we can understand that, hey, if a TV show is scheduled to go on this date and then there's some big catastrophe that means it has to be pushed, when your business is super seasonal, you are screwed if you don't have a robust strategy that is, not tied to one big thing. Anyway, what we did with the Christmas tree company, and I can't remember its name, which is really bothering me, but it's a really good example, is, okay, well, who would have a Christmas tree in January? What's that person like? What do they do? Who is that? How do we target them? How do we reach them? What about the person who wants a Christmas tree in February? That's ridiculous. But what if it's a Valentine's Day tree? What about the person who wants a Christmas tree in the summer? That's really crazy. But maybe it's a palm tree, and just adapting for all the use cases. I hope that actually answered your question. But the point is, I don't know if it did, but, taking what you have, applying it to the real world, and hoping it catches on because you have, again, stayed true to your brand. You have, shown your audience what you can do, how they can take your product from, your hypothetical life and best case scenario and use it to their life, with an editorial calendar, everything like that. That was a fun example because it was so ridiculous. Who would have a Christmas tree in July? But then of course, if you go on TV, Christmas in July is actually a holiday. And if you want a palm tree, if you want another type of tree, if you want something, if you just want a birthday tree, so you do have to get a little creative.
So I'm curious along the same lines, Molly, for our listeners, what, in terms of your experience when you were working with Barbara or Miss Clippering, since I really don't know her, I can't call her yet. How often, with all the investments that she made, did they actually, based on her involvement, get monetized into a successful project?
So pretty often. And the reason is, and I say that because the other side is, none of these sharks are going to invest in products that they don't think they can, win with. Which is really good advice for anyone who's investing. Obviously, don't invest in something you don't believe in. But at this point, when it comes to Shark Tank, all of the investors have really good relationships with, like, if you look, Lori, for example, all her products, most of them end up in Bed Bath & Beyond. That's not a coincidence. That, she knows that model. She knows QVC, obviously really well. But at this point, all of them know what their strengths are, how they can push, and what's the most important is today when the show started, a lot of these companies, they didn't have websites. They didn't understand that what viewers do today is watch Shark Tank while they're on their phones, and if they like your product, they're ordering right then. So there's a thing called the Shark Tank effect, which is I think it's on Sundays now, but when I was working there, it was on Fridays. Whatever day it is, that night, your website better be up and running. Your social media better be perfect. You need to be there. Your whole company needs to be on that night because you're probably going to see, the most volume you've ever seen, no matter what, if you get an investment or not. And that's where it all ties back to using social media as a digital catalog. So know that even if you don't have a lot of followers, if you have a catalog of every single thing that you sell, or, a bigger picture of what you are about, what your brand is about, whatever it is, because people, upon hearing about you, go straight to your social media page often, having it look good and be representative of who you are, what you believe in, what you stand for, everything like that is more important than followers.
Yeah, that's well said. That's well said. I mean, a digital catalog in real time.
Yeah. I've
interviewed a couple people from Shark Tank, Max Feber, if you know Max from Brew, and Hoffman from Mensch on a Bench.
Yes, of course.
A couple others, but those, they've shared, some great success stories by, with their sharks. So, Molly, we're coming to an end, but you're a new author, and we wanted to talk to you about social media, and we wanted to talk to you about your book, but you're also, in just kind of our last minute, not to cut it short, but you're also, an entrepreneur and started a business in a new segment. So tell everybody a little bit about your business. I think it's a really cool business, and I just want to make sure that you get some airtime on that.
Thank you. So my company is called Just Nips. We make nipple enhancers for women to have the appearance that they are cold. And a lot of people are confused. Who would want that? Well, what people don't realize is how many women who've gone through breast cancer don't have nipples, and what a big part of their treatment the nipple is. So what we do is we offer a very inexpensive option that still gives the appearance of having a nipple. When I started the company, I loved the look. I thought it was fun and exciting, and I figured I'd give it a shot. I was really excited to start my own company, and this obviously became, everything I cared about, just because I was working on Shark Tank at the time, and I was like, why can't I do something? So I started Just Nips, and when I was doing competitive research, I found that I was able to make my product, and retail it for $9.99. And the competitors on the market were selling theirs for $300. And women going through breast cancer, another $300 expense is, I mean, I couldn't believe it. The $9, $300, I knew I had to do something. We also have a big donation program that goes to breast cancer research. And we donate product all the time to women in, cancer groups and chemo centers, everything like that. So, it's, still going really strong, and I'm super proud of it, and all of the ways we've been able to help with something that when people hear about it for the first time are like, what are you talking about? So
it's wonderful.
Well, yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Well, I'll let Randy close it. I'm just going to say this. I appreciate you coming on today, talking about social media, how to look at it, different ways, tips, tricks, etc. Your insight, your wisdom, and your entrepreneurial spirit, and your business that you created to fill a niche, which I think is so necessary and needed. So thanks for everything you're doing, and I appreciate you taking time to stay with us today. And to you and your family, stay safe. And Randy, I'll let you close.
Yeah, thank you, Molly. You're an author for a reason.
Yeah.
And your experience, the depth and breadth that you bring, it's refreshing, but it's also plain English. So I love an element of it. And, today's show was a lot of fun. And thank you for being here.
Sure.
Tell everybody where they can get your websites and your book and everything.
Sure. You can get my book, The Instagram Iceberg, on Amazon, or our website, theinstagramIceberg.com. And you can get Just Nips at justnipsforall.com. Do not go to justnips.com, because that is porn.
Okay. All right. Well, Molly, thank you very much. Randy, thank you.
Thank you.
And all right. Thanks, everybody.
Be safe. Be well. Thank you.